Welcome to Voices Against Violence, a Harmony House podcast to educate, empower, and serve as a voice for survivors. We aim to shed light on crucial issues surrounding domestic violence, offer support, and inspire action for change. Join us as we work together to create a community where all individuals can live a life free of abuse.
I'm Charity Jordan-Rex, Prevention Program Manager here at Harmony House.
I'm Kirstyn Walker, Assistant Executive Director at Harmony House.
Joining us today is Nora Mosby from the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Nora, so glad to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirstyn and Charity. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast because you are with the Missouri Coalition, and I know that there are probably a lot of folks listening and in our community that are like, what's the coalition? So let's just start with the basics. Tell us what the coalition is and what you do for the coalition. What's your role?
Yeah, so Charity, the Missouri Coalition is actually shorthand for a much longer name of our organization. We are the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And when I leave voicemails for people, I say it all out, and it always is like the longest message ever. But the coalition is the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And we are a statewide coalition of individuals, organizations, and allied professionals who are united against rape and abuse. So our mission at the Missouri Coalition is to unite Missourians with the common value that rape and abuse must end. And we do this through advancing education, public policy, research, and alliance building opportunities. And we've been doing this for 45 years, so quite a while now.
I had no idea that the coalition was that old, 45 years. That's a long time.
I know we've got a couple gray hairs, but we're still looking good. So we were founded in 1980, and we're founded by advocates, directors of domestic violence advocacy organizations who really wanted a state-level presence to move positive change forward on behalf of survivors of domestic violence and on behalf of advocacy organizations. And they said, hey, we want this representation in Jefferson City, and they got together and formed a coalition of the existing advocacy organizations at the time. So keep in mind, our current anti-violence movement has really only been around for about 40 years, actually. By a couple decades, I meant about four to five decades. Mm-hmm. And so at the time in 1980, when the coalition was formed, we only had a handful of advocacy programs in the state of Missouri. And so when I say it was truly like 5 to 8 really passionate people who got together and wanted this coalition to happen, it really was just a mighty group of advocates who got together and founded the coalition back in 1980. Since then, we have grown and grown. We now have over 100 members located throughout the state of Missouri. And we've grown from one staff person who was really doing all of the work in an attic office at a shelter to having it was a very grassroots at the beginning of the coalition. Our origins are truly making things happen out of not a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. So I would say we're definitely, it's in our DNA to be resourceful, that's for sure. So we have over 18 staff now that have and move forward with policies and programs that ensure rape and abuse will end someday. Mm-hmm. So I can speak to my role if that's helpful.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do specifically at the coalition. In addition to hosting the coalition's podcast.
I sure do. I thank you.
Where can we find that?
Thank you. It's true. I'm a member services specialist at the Missouri Coalition. And as a member services specialist, as in with many advocacy jobs, I think our listeners might be able to relate to this, there are many other duties as assigned, right? And so my work is really focused on supporting coalition members. We were founded by members. We continue to operate each and every day in service to our members. So I provide those kinds of services by answering technical assistance questions and providing educational opportunities, providing alliance building opportunities. And then also, I'm honored to be able to host our podcast at the Coalition. Our podcast is called Momentum for Change, Voices of the Missouri Movement. And you can stream episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and find it on our YouTube channel as well, if you'd like to plug into the video version. But the goal of the podcast is to shine a light on innovative, creative things happening around domestic and sexual violence advocacy in the state of Missouri, to lift up interesting things that our members are doing, and also other kind of allied efforts that are happening around violence prevention, public policy, a full range of topics. So it's a really fun way to just bring interesting, innovative information to our listeners, to our members, and just connect in a different kind of format. And I certainly do enjoy hosting it.
Yeah, that sounds so exciting to be doing that work on a state level. And, you know, you've got people all over the state, members all over the state. And I know you all do a lot of advocacy there in Jeff City, trying to make sure that survivors' needs and concerns are heard by our policymakers. So that's incredible. I wonder.
Yeah, if I could speak to that a little bit,
Yeah, go
Charity,
ahead.
because I think it's really important to understand we have these kind of philosophical origins at the Coalition that we're really committed to. And one of those is the role of advocacy. We really see the value of advocacy in terms of supporting individual survivors, connecting them with resources, assisting with safety plans. But then we have a broader understanding of advocacy in terms of working within the community to support programs, and working at the state level also to bring a diverse coalition of people together to enact positive change. And so we see advocacy and support advocacy at these multiple levels to bring people together for change.
I mean, that's so vital. I mean, because that's how you actually can begin to reduce and even prevent violence in communities around the state. I wonder if you can speak to kind of what the landscape was when the Coalition was forming. Like, you know, what was happening? What were they seeing in terms of survivors' experiences in Missouri?
40 years ago.
40 years ago.
I'm so glad you asked me that question. I get truly excited when I think about movement history. I think it's endlessly fascinating, and I could hear people talk about their involvement in the movement over the last couple of decades for just hours and hours. Because I think when we recognize how far we've come, we can really be inspired by how far we will continue to go in the future. And so it's really remarkable to recognize how much change has happened since the Coalition was founded in 1980. I think we've seen just so many new laws since then, in large part thanks to the advocacy efforts of the Coalition and Coalition members. So we've seen lots of new laws. We've seen a lot of new approaches to advocacy, a deeper understanding of the impact of trauma, and a greater incorporation of trauma-informed approaches within advocacy services. And really, if we think back to like the early 80s, the world was a different place in its response to survivors of domestic and sexual violence. And so we really have come a long ways since then. I think if we looked at what was the criminal justice response to survivors of domestic and sexual violence, back then even though it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was not taken as seriously by law enforcement. Often, if law enforcement responded to a scene, they would tell an abusive partner to take a walk around the block. There would be no arrest or criminal penalties.
Okay, wait. If law enforcement even responded, so like, even if someone would call police because their abuser is assaulting them, like they might, and then when they get there, it's like, yeah, buddy, take a walk. Really? I am.
Yes, I mean,
what about you, Kirstyn?
No, I am. I'm reflecting like what Nora said of when we think about how far we've come, it really is hope giving of how this work can continue. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like looking at this history, and I could nerd out with you over this kind of thing too, Nora. Like, I think sometimes in the moment, day to day, you're like, oh, am I making a difference? What, But when you look at kind of the big picture and you're able to see all of the change that you're making and like, okay, yeah, we really have done a lot. Like that's incredible.
And I think that speaks to a large benefit of having a statewide coalition is that we serve as a platform to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And because we've been doing it for 45 years, we provide a lineage of other advocates and change makers who have been involved in that process. And we are walking down a path that they have paved for us and will continue to walk down. But that is, I think, really one of the strengths of the coalition is that it just brings together such a robust alliance of expertise that we can continue to draw inspiration from as we are sludging through our day-to-day tasks and our day-to-day advocacy.
Yeah, for sure. Can you give us an example of maybe some recent legislation that has been passed that supports survivors that the coalition, was advocating for?
Yes, absolutely. So one of our big mottos at the coalition is that we change laws, we change lives. And I think that goes both ways in that we are changing laws that impact people's lived experiences in really significant ways. And then what's really interesting as the other side of that coin is that people are changing laws, getting involved in coalition advocacy and changing laws by sharing their experiences, by breaking the silence of the trauma they've experienced and sharing those experiences with policymakers in order to move policy change forward. And that like winning combination of changing laws and changing lives has brought about so much significant change. In recent years, we have celebrated some great policies coming from the state legislature, so impacting the entire state of Missouri. One that we were really excited to finally get in Missouri is a domestic violence housing law that says that survivors of domestic and sexual violence are able to break their lease and move, not have to stay in a housing situation that's dangerous just because they have a lease. So they're able to break their lease. We got that several years ago.
Big thing to some folks, but yeah, that is huge.
That's eliminating such a barrier for folks to be able to leave.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's really been exciting to see how advocates from across the state are using it as a tool to connect survivors with safety and part of their safety plan saying, okay, you are able to get out of your lease and here's how we do it. And so that was a really exciting one. We have a Sexual Violence Survivors Bill of Rights that came out, really elaborating what rights a survivor of sexual violence has when they go to law enforcement or the courts or the circuit attorney's office. Survivors are able to get a free birth certificate, which also might not sound like a big deal, but you all know how important a birth certificate is.
Yes.
And so hard to do.
On a previous episode, we had one of our case managers who said that like every single one of her clients comes into shelter without those identifying documents because the abuser has taken them, destroyed them, whatever. And so that's a huge barrier because what can you do without your ID, your birth certificate, whatever? So again,
Yes.
it may not sound like a big deal, but really that is another huge barrier. Oh my gosh.
And that one came about
Coalition.
Yes, that one came about directly from a coalition member saying, gosh, this is actually a pretty big hardship. Could we just get the state of Missouri to issue one free birth certificate? And we worked with the state legislature and made it happen.
Yeah.
So that was a really good one. I have to also mention VESA, the Victims
Yes.
Economic Security and Safety Act, which
Yes.
allows survivors to take unpaid time off of work in order to take care of things like going to court and getting medical care, finding child care. So they don't have to risk losing their job for taking care of things that are directly related to being a victim of domestic or sexual violence.
I mean, and really, this isn't even scratching the tip of the iceberg of the work that the coalition is doing. But those are things: housing, getting a free copy of your birth certificate, and then being able to take time off to deal with the repercussions without the threat of losing your job. Like, those are just huge barriers that the coalition has helped remove for survivors all across the state of Missouri. I'm in awe, really. When you put all that together, it's like, wow.
So,
Yeah,
so Nora, for
I
folks,
agree.
for folks who are listening who have maybe never advocated for policy change before, and maybe they're in Missouri, maybe not, this podcast gets listened to in a lot of places. Do you have one tip, one starting point of how do we begin this kind of work if we're interested in policy change?
Such a great question, Kirstyn.
It's a really good question. I'm so glad you asked, because so much of our work about making change happen on behalf of survivors is making change happen with really diverse groups of organization, diverse groups of people, but also diverse groups of policymakers who might not always see our issue as aligned with their own agenda, right? And so a lot of our work at the coalition is about finding common ground. And so what is that common ground where we can connect with a lawmaker, where we can share the real life impact that a certain policy is having on a survivor, and how can we move by either touching people's hearts, saying, you know what, we all know someone who's been impacted by domestic and sexual violence. You do too, if you think about it in your life. And how can we support those people? So finding common ground, and really, I think, connecting with the hearts and minds of lawmakers as well. And just know that if you're interested in getting involved in public policy, the coalition is here to support that effort. So we also want to see you get involved to support public policy. And we have a lot of different platforms in order to support our members' engagement, and also just like the larger community. If this is something you're interested in taking action on, we are here to support that effort.
How can people find more information about the coalition? How can they get plugged in?
Yeah, there is a wealth of information about the coalition on our website. So if you go to www.mocadsv.org, you will find legislative updates, publications about our new laws that pass during every legislative session. You'll find research, and just newly launched, you can also sign up for our newsletter on our website. And so if you are wanting to stay informed on this topic, want to keep an eye out on what the emerging issues are, go to our website and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We would love for you to receive it.
Oh, that's exciting. And tell us again, how can people find your podcast? Tell us again, give us another plug for the podcast.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the podcast, it's a monthly podcast. So new episodes are posted every month on our YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube, type in MOCADSV, you'll see every episode of our podcast that's ever come out in video form. If you're more of an audio streamer, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I believe it's also on Amazon. Just type in Momentum for Change, Voices of the Missouri Movement, and you will see a new episode that appears every month. And we would love to have you all as listeners.
Nora, I just can't thank you enough for taking time to join us on our podcast. But I'm really honestly inspired and energized
I'm
by
feeling motivated.
Yes.
To change laws and change lives.
Exactly. Like it's nice to be reminded of what's happening and how you really are impacting people right here in Greene County, but all over the state of Missouri. So thank you for the work that you're doing with the coalition. And we hope that, if you ever want to talk about anything else, things that are coming, you are welcome to come back anytime.
Well, thank you so much, Charity and Kirstyn. And I just want to put a shout out there. If you are somebody who cares deeply about ending rape and abuse, just know that it's such a large issue and there's a role that everyone has to play in it. And so there is plenty that you can do within your own personal life, within the organizations you're affiliated with, or by connecting with the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence to take action and support survivors and move forward with ending rape and abuse in Missouri.
Thank you so much, Nora. Loved having you on the podcast, and come back and join us anytime.
All individuals have a right to a life free of abuse. If you or someone you know needs help, please call our 24-hour hotline, 417-864-SAFE, 417-864-7233, or chat 24/7 with an advocate on our website at myharmonyhouse.org. Visit our website or follow us on our socials to stay up on the latest news and events. This is Voices Against Violence. Thanks for listening.